The most important question I ever got was, what is your legacy? Not the material legacy, but if life stops here, how do you want to be remembered? What is that energy? How do people see you? Complaining? Uplifting? What is your frequency legacy? This podcast series is a result of that question. What is my legacy? A phoenix is burning itself on a funeral pyre, rising from the ashes with a renewed youth to live through another cycle. This fertile ash is filled with phoenix frequencies like compassion, love, forgiveness, intuition, wisdom, generosity, resilience, and creativity, and evolution and involution. I've been in the ashes. I want to give voice to the phoenix frequencies. On a weekly basis, I share my resources or interview another phoenix. I'm Nienke van Bezooijen and I welcome you if this resonates with you. And I invite you to the courage to rise. The phoenix frequencies. This is Nienke van Bezooijen, the host of these podcasts. After the first time, the start, I got a lot of requests and very nice responses of, why are you doing this? This is great. Who is going to interview you? You have a great story. Yeah, that's later. But what I realize is you don't know really what my background is and where all this was seeded. So let me tell you a bit about myself, a bit about my background, and then we will just see where we go from there. So I'm born in a lovely family. I'm the second child of two. I have an elder brother. He's about 20 months older than I am. I have lovely parents, and they did the best they could to raise us in a nice and good environment. I also know that my mum is handicapped since the age of 3, 4 years old, and she has difficulty to walk. From a very young age, I learned that it is rewarding to look after others, to support others. I have a great example how my father always was there for her. So it was rewarding. I also know, even in childhood, where I was a sensitive one, there wasn't much space for that in my family. There was a lot of interest for intellect and understanding, way less for emotions, feelings. And I was a sensitive child. In my love life, I could see I was searching for someone like my father. And because I knew it was beneficial to look after others, I had a deep desire to help others to transform and to rescue them for them, their environment. You know, I know the saying, well, do you know I married several times the same man, but only with a different birth certificate? Well, that could be my case. I bumped my nose, but I didn't know why. The capacity to stay calm in the eye of the storm when there are medical things going on or psychological things going on is very helpful as a nurse. But it was also recognized in the family. I was caregiver for about 6 people in my family. That's not something I decided to, but it was more a pattern and I grew into it. There were two places in my nursing career where I learned the most. The first was an internship in an institution with young adults, people between 16 and 24 years old. Most of them couldn't speak, and I learned there to listen and to be intuitive to what needed to be said. Because if I would give them voice and it would make it wrong and express myself not aligned with what they had in mind to say, they would have a spasm. So I learned to set myself aside, set my own thoughts aside, and just be with someone else. Very, very helpful environment to shape my own life. Later on, after I was a qualified nurse, I worked in hospices. The most wonderful time of my life, because when you know life is ending, everything shifts. So, as at that time already a single mom with 2 young kids, I did night shifts with 8 dying people. So, the true conversations, just speaking out what needed to be said and wrapping up life, was for me the same thing as being with birth of young children. It's life giving, life ending. And just having the snowball fight as a big desire for the last time in life, or baking pancakes, even if they could have one bite, it was humbling and such a resource of joy. When I realized it was physically no longer possible to be with them, I stopped and started to become a manager. Later on, I did my BA, and then I decided to have a complete career shift. I became an entrepreneur. And for someone who is quite an introvert, although communicative, I chose to become a speaker coach, a public speaking coach, had my own method, my own books, my own business. After so many, for example, TED Talks, I helped people to give voice to what really mattered to them. From the outside, it might have looked glamorous and successful, but the children out of the house, being with a partner with anxiety and depression, it became harder and harder for myself to express myself through what really was true to me. I numbed myself. So, although I helped others to speak, I became more quiet and quiet. I numbed. But life helped me. When I was for work in Bratislava, Slovakia, it was a noisy environment in the evening and night, and I desperately wanted to catch up some sleep. When I turned over, I realized everything was quiet. I realized I was becoming deaf. But because I didn't have pain, I just postponed to have a clear look at it. But after some weeks, I still had a hearing test. To make a long story short, I was diagnosed with a benign brain tumor. And there were only 2 hospitals in the Netherlands who could treat it because it was so rare. Shortly after that, I lost my balance, so the eye of the storm wasn't helping me any longer. It was like I was seasick and on a boat day and night, very tiring. I had a surgery to remove partially the tumor. That wasn't a easy surgery because the anesthetics didn't work. They failed. That's a whole other story I will tell another time about. But in 8 days, I got my balance back and I was happy until a couple of months later, I lost my capacity to articulate and I was choking quite a bit after eating and drinking. Back to the academic hospital, they found out the tumor was pressing vital cranial nerves. The only thing what could stop losing my capacity to speak was radiotherapy, and that's what I chose. 25 sessions of radiotherapy weren't easy, particularly in my personal environment. I couldn't be the anchor for my partner with anxiety and depression any longer. I felt I was drowning in my own eye of the storm. I didn't have the strength to step up and do all what I thought was needed for myself and others. What finally cracked the pattern was the blame I got from the healthcare professionals that I was the resource of all my partner's troubles. I felt so depleted that my depletion and martyrhood strained me completely. I just wanted to sleep. When I woke up after 26 hours of a coma, at first I was angry, really angry. Let me go. I'm so tired. of being the eye of the storm. But my second thought was in 2 days, well, if life is given back to me, it's time to rise. But that wasn't understood in the hospital. Because I could describe what happened and why I was in the situation I was, they thought, well, this one can look after herself. So I was sent home. I had tremendous support from very close friends. Even when I was in hospital, I got a dear friend on the phone. Silla already gave me 4 questions, and I can see by now they saved my life. I want to share these questions with you because maybe they can help you or others too. Silla gave me the task, no matter how tired I was, to answer on a daily basis a couple of questions. First question: how am I really today? So, to be self honest, how do I feel in my body? What is really going on? The second question is, what is my truth today? And what do I need to be true? Third question, what do I need today? And where can I find it? Question number 4, where do I feel vulnerable? And I added an extra question. The extra question I added because I felt it was important for me. It's not only where do I feel vulnerable, but also how do I respond to my vulnerability? Because I realized that my fighting mechanism was numbing and not speaking up. So if that's the response of pressure, I knew I had to transform that pattern and do something else. Another thing, what was tremendously valuable, was having the conversation with my friend and coach Shavakar, who really got me into a area of Matyrhood because that wasn't serving me any longer. I will have a whole episode on these series about Matyrhood. By now I know I had to transform my pattern of giving all and not being self-honest what I needed. I had to learn to be so deeply self-honest that I could really step up in a different way, to transform my patterns, to stop serving others first without listening to my own body signals, to my own patterns. I stopped everything. I had to stop my love relationship after 21 years. I left my house after living there for 25 years. I moved from a 7-room building to a 2-room flat. So I had to reorganize everything what I had in my life. All I inherited from my grandparents, all my other loved ones, all the toys from the children they didn't want to have. I had to rebuild relationships. I lost many people in my life who I thought were friends. I had to reinvent family dynamics and still a journey. I had to end with compassion the relationship. Difference between bouncing back from trouble in life, probably most from external circumstances, wasn't my way out. My way out from the ash was the willingness to let go of everything I built up so far and to face honestly, honest and truthful, what is serving me and where I want to serve. And that isn't the drama. It isn't the martyr who wants attention. It's the self-honest discovery what's really going on. I learned tremendously from there and learned to be neutral about myself. And neutral isn't the same as numbing. Neutral is without judgment to self and others. I learned that responsibility isn't the same as responding. Responsibility and taking on responsibility numbed me because it cut down my ability to respond. I had so many tools in my toolbox of personal development, but the toolbox isn't a protocol for survival. A toolbox can be handy, but only if you use them honestly. So, how and how I dared to trust my rising, that's for another podcast. So, being in the eye of the storm, self honestly, is based on the four questions. How am I really today? What is my truth today? And what do I need to be true? What do I need today and where can I find it? And where do I feel vulnerable? And how do I respond to that? Maybe these questions can help you too. Next week, I dive into another topic. And the eye of the storm I want to finish with only helps if you are grounded, because a storm travels all over the world and the eye of the storm travels with that. But you need to find a landing place for yourself. You can say you have to be connected with heaven and earth to be in the eye of the storm. I don't mind how you call it, whatever you do with it, whatever resonates with you. But what I wish for you is having the groundedness and not being swept away by storms in life. Looking forward, having another podcast next week. Thank you for listening, and I wish for you the courage to rise.